emotional disorder that makes him afraid of conference calls. No, not at all. The message, as his flack explained, is that Joe Biden is, quote, putting in place precautions. Those, of course, would be sensible precautions. Precautions against Zoom. Because it turns out that COVID is digitally transmissible. It travels through the fibers, through Wi-Fi networks. The virus embeds itself among the ones and the zeros and then springs unsuspected, teeth bared and ready to strike from any available hotspot. Whether it's at Starbucks, down in your basement rec room, even in the Oval Office. Digital COVID could be anywhere. Where there's an internet connection, there's a pandemic. So mask up on those Zoom calls, ladies and gentlemen. YouTube and online backgammon, too. We're kidding, of course. If that were true, we'd be super spreaders, given we're in the digital media business, and we would hate to bear that burden. In the end, the White House never really did explain why Joe Biden was wearing a face mask on a Zoom call after getting fully vaccinated. You're not supposed to ask, you're supposed to accept that. It's a good thing. Shut up. I don't know what the fuck the damn. It's like you're not supposed to ask questions about why children are being forced to wear face masks while they exercise outside. That doesn't make sense. In fact, it's dangerous. Kids are not at great risk from COVID. The coronavirus generally doesn't spread outdoors. We've got a lot of studies that prove that. And wearing a mask when you're breathing heavily is not good for you, to say nothing of the psychological effect of it. But whatever, shut up. Last night we did not shut up and we asked those simple questions. And for our trouble, Bill Kristol promptly denounced us as Nazis. Pretty funny. Ask whatever questions you like as long as they're not relevant questions and you don't insist on answers to them. Those are the rules. Break the rules and you're a bad person. But as it happens, the CDC did finally, coincidentally, offer us some clarity today, and we're grateful for that. Joe Biden shuffled outside to announce the new mask guidelines. Watch the scene.
If the risk is so low outdoors, why doesn't this new guidance apply to everybody?
Because the science indicates that the most certain way to make sure it doesn't spread if both people have been vaccinated, the people you're with, and you're outside.
And you chose to wear a mask, sir. You chose to wear a mask. You chose to wear a mask as you walked out here. What message were you sending by wearing a mask outside alone?
By watching me take it off and not put it back on like it inside.
Got it? So here are the standards. The government is now allowing people who've been fully vaccinated to go outside without masks, as long as they remain with other people who've been fully vaccinated, but only under certain circumstances. So why, you may ask, was Joe Biden walking alone to the mask announcement with a mask on, like it was a Zoom call or something? Because they put him in the costume and he forgot he had it. A mask? Oh yeah, right, took it off. The whole thing inspired more amusement than confidence. But here's the real headline. According to the CDC, Americans must remain under COVID restrictions indefinitely, even those who have been fully vaccinated. Fully vaccinated Americans must continue to wear masks at all times while they're indoors, whether they're in church or getting a haircut or walking into a restaurant. So get a vaccine, cover your face, period. Now, no one is saying so, but consider the logic here. It doesn't make any sense. We know the vaccine works. We know that anyone who wants a vaccine in this country can get one. They've told us those two things again and again, and most of us are willing to believe that they're true. But if they are true, then why wear masks? Anyone who's afraid of getting COVID can get a vaccine, and then everyone else can return to normal life, including people who don't want to get the vaccine. The people who want it can get it, and they'll be protected. And that should be the end. So why the mask fetish? Honestly, what's the answer? Well, no one will say. Instead, the CDC has produced a new round of guidelines that are about as indecipherable as a Turkish train schedule. Next stop, Istanbul, or is it Ankara? We still don't know. According to the CDC, fully vaccinated Americans can go on maskless bike rides with other fully vaccinated bike riders. They can even have dinner outside. Oh, bless you, CDC. Thank you. But they may not, under any circumstances, despite their vaccines, attend baseball games or music concerts or parades. Well, why is that? I don't know, just speculating. Maybe because they will unknowingly carry the coronavirus and accidentally infect people who have refused to take the vaccine. That's our only guess. Joe Biden didn't explain. Once he got his mask off, he just asserted it. Watch.
I want to be absolutely clear. If you're in a crowd, like a stadium or at a conference or a concert, you still need to wear a mask, even if you're outside.
Okay, so see if you can fit these two thoughts in your head, accept them both as true, and see if they match, like Lego pieces, or if they repel one another. Vaccinated people have to wear masks outside. Joe Biden just told us that. But at the same time, vaccines work perfectly, and if you suggest otherwise, you're a Nazi and we're going to ban you from the internet. Okay. What is going on here? We never learned. According to Joe Biden, the science isn't really the point. The point, as always, is race, and that's the one subject the White House is always delighted to talk about, as long as it's from their very specific perspective. Here's Joe Biden telling you that it's a sign of, quote, progress that certain racial groups are more protected from the virus than other groups.
I said from the beginning that we're going to fight this virus with equity for all. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, there are more Latinos and African American seniors that have been vaccinated as a percentage than white seniors. These numbers are a sign of progress on that front as well.
Oh, and now it's getting even more confusing. It's equity, he says, but we thought equity meant achieving the same outcome. If that's true, why was Joe Biden bragging about different outcomes but calling it equity? Maybe there's other meanings to the word equity. We'll make a note to check up on that. Meantime, next up in today's edition of Pandemic Theater, here's the new director of the CDC bringing much-needed actual science to bear on these questions. Again, why are vaccinated people, fully vaccinated people, being told to wear face masks? That's what we're wondering. And here's her answer.
And right now, it's very hard to tease apart who is vaccinated, where they are in the vaccination. So it's not just to protect themselves, but largely to protect others and really to protect the unvaccinated.
Oh, did you catch the last line? Save that on TiVo. Wearing masks is, we're quoting, really to protect the unvaccinated. Oh, there you go. That's the answer. And it's just as we guessed. The vaccine is now universally available. Everyone can get it. But because some people have chosen not to get the vaccine, the rest of us must continue to live as if we haven't gotten the vaccine either. That's the reason. Because some people decide not to wear seatbelts, you can't drive. That's just science. Got it? Thanks, Mom. So how do we fix this problem? The problem of people who refuse to get vaccinated, for whom we're pretending that we haven't been vaccinated either. Thankfully, our media were on the scene with fresh ideas about how to solve that problem. Here's the race lady from MSNBC finally putting her Harvard degree to work. It's simple, she said. Just charge people who don't get the vaccine with felonies.
Now the vaccine-resistant Trump crowd is becoming a problem for the rest of us. That's because the country is fast approaching a tipping point when vaccine hesitancy will become the biggest hurdle to achieving herd immunity. So after a while, so-called vaccine hesitancy might be better described as reckless endangerment.
Oh, wait a second, Harvard-educated race lady. Now you're really confusing us. If you've gotten the vaccine, why is other people's refusal to get the vaccine a problem for you? If the vaccine is so effective, why are the people who choose to get it mad at the people who choose not to get it? Huh? Do people who've slimmed down from gastric bypass yell at fat people on the street? You wouldn't think so. It's not really their business. Your body, your choice, remember? But your body, your choice is definitely not the standard with the COVID vaccine. With the COVID vaccine, it's your body, MSNBC's choice. Watch this guy explain.
I don't know how we get to herd immunity unless we normalize the framework around vaccine certification. Listen, we're doing it in colleges. Some organizations are doing it. We're in a global crisis. We have to reach herd immunity. And the carrot and stick of you get the vaccine, you'll be able to participate in travel, restaurants, you name it, because that's frankly easier for small businesses to adhere to.
Herd immunity? Boy, it seems like not so long ago, maybe it was back in the 50s or like last week, that using the phrase herd immunity was enough to get you yanked off the air as an anti-vaxxer. Now we're bragging about herd immunity. But again, people who got the vaccine and are totally safe are angry at the people who haven't gotten it because somehow they're endangering the people who are already vaccinated. So to protect people who voluntarily taken the risk of not getting the vaccine, we have to hurt those people. We've got to burn the village to save the village. As the doctor on television put it, we've got to use the carrot and the stick, but especially the stick. Colleges love this idea. Many of them are requiring proof of vaccination as a condition of return to campus in the fall. In the state of California, both of the big state school systems, University of California and the Cal State system, are forcing students returning to campus to prove they've been vaccinated. Schools in New York, places like Columbia, Fordham, Syracuse, the big ones, are doing exactly the same thing. What's interesting is that no one has bothered to explain why we're doing it. Virtually no college-age kids have died of COVID. In fact, according to an April report by the CDC, a total of 587 Americans between the ages of 15 and 24 died of the virus last year, most with profound underlying health conditions. Many times that, thousands and thousands and thousands died of suicide over the same period, which we're not concerned about. In the state of Michigan, which now requires 2-year-olds to wear masks outside, there were just 13 coronavirus total last year for people aged 15 to 24. Compare that to overdose deaths in Michigan. It's a tiny fraction. Not that we care about those either.
What's going on?
So the coronavirus doesn't kill a lot of young people, but it does infect quite a few of them. And that's the other problem. Many thousands of college-age kids already have been infected. They have antibodies from previous corona infections they're now recovered from. Science suggests these kids are highly unlikely to be reinfected with COVID. So why are they being forced to get the vaccine? That's a serious question. It's not an anti-vaxxer question. That's a question people who support vaccines and care about them would ask. Because we don't give medicine to people unnecessarily. That is unethical. Meningitis, for example, kills a fair number of people every year. But we don't require everyone to start a regimen of antibiotics before they return to work. That would be crazy. It would be wrong. We wouldn't do it. But we are requiring universal vaccination even of kids who have already been infected. Is that a medically sound idea? Some physicians are concerned that it's not. Joe Rogan over on the podcast voiced his concern on the air the other day. And here's what he said.
When people say, do you think it's safe to get vaccinated? I've said, yeah, I think for the most part it's safe to get vaccinated. I do. But if you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I go, no. Are you healthy? Are you a healthy person? Like, look, don't do anything stupid, but you should take care of yourself. You should, if you're a healthy person and you're exercising all the time and you're young and you're eating well, or like, I don't think you need to worry about this.
Yeah, so if you're at risk, get the vaccine, protect yourself, be happy with it, be grateful we have the vaccine. And if you're not at risk, maybe you don't. Is that a crazy point? Yeah, it is. That's crazy. Joe Rogan's idiotic advice. Healthy young people don't need COVID-19 vaccine. Steered a headline, a representative headline at the dailybeast.com. That's America's foremost defender of ruling class absurdities. You'll notice that the piece never explained why exactly Joe Rogan's advice was so idiotic. It just dismisses him as a moron. He's crazy. Don't listen to him. He's probably a Nazi. Or worse, a Trump voter. That's MSNBC's concern. Why?
I don't know how the right got so far ahead on creating such a political connotation around the conversation about vaccine passports. There are all sorts of things you have to do to travel to all sorts of different places. How has that debate become so corrupted so early?
Because we ain't traveling to that.
It's bad. I live in a state that is, the state legislature is dominated by Trumpers, and they are busy making it illegal for a business to require a passport, a vaccine passport. And now
MSNBC is stupid.
The appropriate way to encourage people to get vaccines, which will cost lives.
How did it get so political? Says Jeb Bush's former flack and the longtime governor of Missouri. Political. See that? All the mouth breathers, the dumb people, the hillbillies and inbreds and extra chromosome folks, the Trumpers, are all spun up with their conspiracy theories about vaccine passports. Come on. There are no vaccine passports. That's insane. It's Alex Jones stuff. And by the way, just so you know, as proof, if you want to get a job, you'll need your vaccine papers.
Although it's always challenging in society to make things mandatory, perhaps in certain employment settings, especially where there's higher risk, we may as a society decide that mandatory vaccination is a reasonable thing to do in certain circumstances.
Can I just call Claire McCaskill a former senator? Governor? Whatever. She was a senator, I guess. Anyway, to recap, it's always challenging when you make things mandatory. Yeah, it's also sometimes unconstitutional and not science. But whatever, here's where we are right now. If you want to live in this country, you will need a vaccination. If you're the right skin color, the government will celebrate when you get that vaccination, but either way, you must get it.
Well, I just take the fucking shit my ass somewhere else.
Do not question that. Now, once you do get the vaccine, you must continue to live as if you didn't get the vaccine for the protection of people who chose not to get the vaccine. And if that bothers you, if you have any questions about why we're doing it this way, then you are a bad person and we must hurt you. So get ready to be unemployed, if not in prison, for reckless endangerment. That's a felony. I hope that settles your concerns tonight about the available science on vaccines. So roll up your sleeve. Dr. Marty McCary is a professor of surgery at Johns Hopkins. He's the author of the Price We Pay, What Broke American Healthcare and How to Fix It. He joins us tonight. Doctor, thanks so much for coming on. So a medical question, there's so many political questions which I will not tire you with, but a medical question, and a sincere one. If you take, say, a spike protein test and it shows you have high levels of antibodies from a natural COVID infection from which you've recovered, should you be forced, compelled to get the vaccine?
No, and in fact, that's the case for many Americans. Up to half of Americans have circulating antibody from prior exposure or prior infection. That's the results of the seroprevalence studies out of California. They were done back in February, and it showed that somewhere between 38% and 45% of the population had circulating antibodies at a time when we didn't have vaccines. So there's a lot of natural immunity out there. It works. We know the rates of reinfection are somewhere in the range of 0.6%, and that's when there's a lot of infection out there. We also have a different virus now. Infection rates are much lower. That makes the risk of getting the infection outdoors, in school settings among young people, lower all the way around. About 54% of adults have vaccinated immunity, and about half that don't have natural immunity. So that means 3 out of 4 adults at every picnic,
I got natural immunity.
every worship service have some immunity. So mathematically, you just cannot have the same type of super spreading events we saw in the past. And to put things in perspective, we have about 50,000 daily COVID cases a day. We have 400,000 flu cases a day during a mild flu season. That was the flu season about 6 years ago. That's why we're doing well as a country. That's why all the numbers are down. That's why San Francisco had 25 COVID cases yesterday.
Flu season
most
last year?
asymptomatic. That's why Arizona had 0 deaths yesterday. Another state to hit 0. That's why Michigan, where they had the big outbreak, is down 30%.
Coronavirus came, China.
Hearing you explain that, and you're a voice of authority on this question, on the science,
Bill Gates virus came and
even more confusing. But I'm glad that you did that. Mr. Marty McCary, it's great to see you tonight. I appreciate it. Thanks, Doctor.
Poof, like a fart in a dust storm.
Component to all of this, and to assess it, who better
Yeah, fluid just
than our
disappeared when
senior
the
political
coronavirus
analyst here at Fox, the
when
great
Bill
Rick
Gates
Neal.
virus
Rick, thanks so
came.
much for coming on. So
disappeared.
If you can't answer very basic questions about a policy on which most Americans, including me, I've had a million vaccines in my life, as we all have. But if you can't answer even the most basic questions, can you really force the policy on the population?
Well, if the issue now, Tucker, is that we need to get everybody...
Only vaccine I never been vaccinated.
And then we'll be over.
I had shots when I was a baby, but I couldn't stop them. Or I wouldn't have
I don't see how it advances the cause very well when you have Joe Biden fully vaccinated walking around outdoors with a mask on. I don't see how it makes any sense for Joe Biden, as you showed him earlier, on a Zoom call, wearing a mask with nobody anywhere near him.
Wouldn't you think he'd be safe? Do you think that Putin could have infected him through the fiber line?
What worries me is when you say something like that, the next thing you know is the CDC will come out and warn against it.
It's just making me nervous.
Well, the CDC has been all over the place on vaccines. So has our government. Remember back way early on, when the disease was first breaking out here. What did Dr. Fauci say? He said, if you wear a mask, it might keep a few droplets from getting out, but it's not going to give you the protection you think it is. Now, the masks that we see and wear are not exactly, something new. Doctors have been wearing masks in operating rooms, and nurses and medical people have been wearing them for the longest time. We know
but they only
know a lot about them. And what we know informed what he said originally. Now somehow,
you're infected.
In the midst of this, it's become an absolutely essential protection. I think a lot of people doubt that. But now we have a situation in which you see people wearing masks who are fully vaccinated. What does that say about how useful it is to get vaccinated? I mean, either the vaccines work, and we're told they do, or they don't. And if they do work, then what's the need for the mask? I'm talking about outdoors, of course, but indoors as well.
Well, of course, it doesn't make any sense.
It makes absolutely no sense. And people looking at this are going to say, well, I don't know, even the government isn't making sense about this. The messaging is inconsistent. I don't know what to do, but I don't want some chemical
vaccine don't work.
Stuck in my arm. Now, look, I'm fully
they don't work.
They
don't keep you from getting the virus. They don't protect you.
But I can certainly understand
they don't
people would be
protect you from getting it. They don't protect you. Yeah, I mean, they don't prevent you from getting it.
And cynical.
And they don't cure it.
It seems very... Last question. Have you heard anybody answer the question?
But I know why they want you to get it.
The vaccine works, and we all believe it does.
Right.
I know why.
Well, what they'll say to you is, well, even if you're fully vaccinated,
they want you to get it so they can put that microchip thing that they can track you.
But you may be carrying it.
It goes in your system.
Of course, doing that,
so they can
may give it to somebody
put that
who's
chip
not
in you
and that person
through the vaccine so they can track you. Make you where you cannot produce kids. Kill the part of your brain that identifies religion. And alter your DNA.
We've done a terrible job of protecting them.
That's 4 reasons. I can't remember all of them, but there's 4.
Meanwhile, we quarantine the healthy,
of course,
which is a previously unheard of medical practice.
Making your children play soccer in a mask, which is
that's crazy.
It's abuse. Right. We should treat it that way. Thank you. It's great to see you. Thank you. Well, there's new evidence that big tech has coordinated with elected officials to censor opinions that they don't like. That is Orwellian. It's the definition, and we have details. So there was a lot going on out of public view during the last election. A lot. Here's the latest example. The group Judicial Watch obtained hundreds of documents from the Secretary of State of California, our biggest state. Those documents revealed that state officials pressured the social media companies, the big ones, Google, Twitter, Facebook, to censor social media posts they didn't like and that wouldn't help them about the 2020 election. Here's one example. A state agency successfully pressured YouTube, owned by Google, to block a video about mail-in voting. They didn't think it would help the Democratic Party, so the video was blocked. Some of the state's documents were compiled by the firm SPDK. Its top client, Joe Biden. Sagar Enjeti is the host of Rising. We're happy to have him on tonight. Sagar, thanks so much for coming. I don't think you could be a fervent Biden voter and still think that maybe this looks like the end of democracy. Or am I overstating it?
No, you're not, Tucker. The most basic American principle is to distrust the government. YouTube, Google, Twitter, many of these Silicon Valley companies were built on the bedrock principle of free speech. But this is a censorship regime which you would much more see in China. I mean, let's really think about it. The Chinese Communist Party runs the Chinese government, which creates the censors, which are then dispersed to the Chinese tech companies who decide that Oceania has always been at war with East Asia, or Eurasia, I believe. And that is something that they have come to live with there in China. This is something, a one-party state like California in particular, where the intertwinement of party with the government, with the large tech companies who are then listening and complying with some of these regulations. Let's think about it. For your previous guest, Brett Hume, he brought this up, which is that Dr. Fauci back in February was saying that masks don't work. So does that mean that YouTube back in February, where I do host a show as well, should have been taking down videos in which I and some other people were expressing skepticism around this? That would technically be in violation of government practice. And now they're doing the opposite. This just goes to show how dystopian this can get very quickly.
Well, sure. I mean, Google apparently is suppressing photographs of the governor of Virginia in blackface, which tells you a lot. So if you have the most powerful companies in the world working stealthily, secretly, to help a specific political party, then where does that leave everyone else?
Yeah, well, where are you going to go? Are you going to create your own Google? I mean, they already have, 90-something% of search traffic. I think the most bedrock principle is this, which is that when you begin to see intertwinement of a political party, of state enforcement, and then along with the so-called private companies, you live in an oligarchy, and you live eventually in a dictatorship. And the only way that they can have dissent is that they have to crush it. We have 2 options. We're America. Liberty is in our blood. Liberty is largely what we should strive for. And the other option is a police state. And unfortunately, that's what we're beginning to see.
As you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, I hope a lot of people are hearing him as he speaks. Sagar Enjeti, I hope your audience gets bigger and bigger. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Tucker.
So if you're paying any attention at all, not just to Joe Biden masking up for a Zoom call, you may have noticed that we seem to be moving closer towards some kind of conflict with nuclear-armed Russia. Are we? And if we are, who's pushing this and why? Glenn Greenwald joins us after the break. By the way, a new episode of Tucker Carlson Today is out on FoxNation.com tomorrow afternoon. Heather McDonald of the Manhattan Institute is here for the hour, as Larry King used to say. It's on Fox Nation. There are reports tonight that a number of American citizens, including Americans who were at the Trump rally in January, the perfectly legal Trump rally in Washington in January, have been placed by this administration on the no-fly list, meaning they cannot fly domestically. We have not been able to confirm that. But if it's true, this is a turning point in American history.
If you already got
These
it,
are people,
why are you
again,
scared?
who have not been charged with crimes. If they have been prevented from traveling within their own country by the administration because the administration doesn't like their political views, that is not democracy.
Why
It's
did you get
dictatorship. We have to find out who's on the no-fly list, which American citizens are on the no-fly list, and why. We should find out immediately. And by the way, if they turn out to be members of Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter leaders turn out to be on that list, we'll be completely against that too. Well, speaking of news we haven't been paying enough attention to, the United States and Russia appear to be heading toward some kind of conflict. The White House has called Russia a national emergency. Are we moving toward conflict, and why exactly? Glenn Greenwald is unusually clear-eyed on this subject. He's, of course, a journalist. He works on Substack, and you ought to read him there. Glenn Greenwald, thanks for coming on.
That's what I say, Thunderstruck.
Simple question.
Amen,
Do we appear
brother.
to be moving toward some kind of conflict with Russia, and if so, why?
The relationship between the U.S. and Russia is clearly at its low point since any time, at least since the Cold War. There's no little doubt about that. You ask any analyst,
What's
they'll
up,
tell you that.
Savage?
And the reason I think is
I don't think
One
Nikki's
is that
fake one.
during Russiagate,
I just
this
say
whole hysteria that surrounded it, there was this
I don't give a damn if I don't give a damn if
namely
I
liberals and Democrats, that Russia
I don't give a damn if I need a heart transplant.
and they believe
And the
it
only
to
way
the point where
to
they
get the
think
heart
that
transplant
everything we can do
surgery
against Russia,
is to have
we
the
ought to do
vaccine.
it. If
I
we
will
stand
not
up and
fucking take
question
it.
As we're doing now, it probably means that you're some kind of spy for the Kremlin.
I may want to produce. I may want to have another child one day.
Is winding down.
And I want to be able to actually
we're coming out of Afghanistan, and so the question is
make that kid instead of not being able to make the kid. And I don't want to be tracked. I don't want that nanochip that's in the vaccine. I don't want to be to where I cannot produce kids like the vaccine has. I don't want the part of my brain that identifies religion killed off like the vaccine does. I don't want my DNA altered like the vaccine does. There's more reasons, but there's four main reasons. Plus, I don't want to take no experimental vaccine. It's experimental. Experimental tested on anything but humans.
About the degradation of our relations
The
with
humans
Russia.
that take
We're moving
it
toward something
are
bad.
test dummies.
Well, it's interesting, this is one of those times where it's useful to go back a little bit in history before 2017. We're often told the history doesn't begin until 2017, but there was a huge bipartisan pressure campaign on President Obama to send lethal arms to Ukraine. And all you have to do is look at a map or history of how Russia was almost twice destroyed in the 20th century to see the crucial
but that's just
of
me.
Ukraine to Russia. But Obama's point was correct, which was
that's way
it
I
has no crucial importance to us. So why would we want to risk confrontation with a nuclear armed power over Ukraine? And I think the reason why people don't question it is because they're afraid that
well, the guinea pigs, test dummies,
it's not worth the U.S.
whatever you want to call it,
or any kind of U.S.
depopulation. That's right.
From Moscow, you get accused of being an apologist for the Kremlin or someone serving Russian interests, and that's become a very powerful political weapon that shapes our discourse and is affecting all aspects of our policy.
Name calling is a form of social control, and a very effective one, as you just pointed out. Glenn Greenwald, who is totally resistant to that. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.
So you've seen something called equity emerge in school districts in every state in the country. What is equity? Well, in effect, it makes racism compulsory. Parents in one school district are revolting against it. Thank God. Dana Lash lives in that school district. She joins us next to explain what is happening there. How bad Marxism is, how it makes everyone poor. What we forget is it makes a small number of people really rich, and that's why they're in favor of it. Patrice Cullors is a Marxist. She's a co-founder of BLM, and she's taken her newfound riches, shaken down corporations, and bought a couple big houses, a number of them. But that's not all she's buying. We're learning a lot more about her spending habits. Fox's Trace Gallagher has that story for us.
Hey, yeah.
Hey Tucker,
Communist bastards, socialist bastards. Call it what you want, that's what it is.
Measure to reduce the jail populations in Los Angeles County. Turns out, in 2019, that jail reform group had quite the gathering at a Malibu beach resort called Calamigos Guest Ranch. The group spent
I'll die before I take it. I swear on my soul that I will not take that vaccine. And I care about my soul, you know, and I ain't doing it.
Public records of the meeting.
I ain't stupid.
But critics say if everything is on the up and up, why did the jail reform group book the beach club through a consulting firm?
I don't care if they tell me I can't eat, I don't care if they tell me I can't eat, I can't drink, I can't go outside, I can't do anything. They can lock me up in a damn small fucking little bitty room, so little that I can't even barely move like that. I ain't doing it.
Conservative watchdog group already raising red flags.
Well, at least you warned
so much for that report.
It's on them, it ain't on us. We tell people. I tell people. You tell people. Listen.
Carroll Independent School District of South Lake, Texas, is one of the highest performing school districts in the state of Texas.
They want their DNA altered.
In 2018, the school district.
They want their DNA altered and the part of their brain that identifies religion cut off and to be put to where they can't have babies and stuff and have it.
Students needed more attention because they
have
to work extra hard and do like double the work just to succeed.
Inject into your system whenever they stick you that needle, and then they can track you everywhere you fucking go. Fuck that. Kiss my ass.
Quote, burning crosses and swastikas. He said a lot of other things too.
You can't get it again. Once you get it, Nikki, you're immune.
Finally, parents in that school district are revolting with parents running.
Yeah, once you get it, you're immune.
The
vaccine doesn't. The vaccine doesn't keep you from getting Bill Gates virus. It doesn't keep you from getting it.
Come to your town. Tell us what parents are doing about it.
It doesn't keep you from getting it. It doesn't cure
Thank you so much for covering this issue. And
the virus. It doesn't cure it. It doesn't keep you from getting it. It does neither one.
Show up in numbers, and I understand that parents and educators are afraid to speak out singularly.
It's all about.
But when you band together as families, a group of families,
teeny tiny fucking chip.
I mean, you can actually get a lot.
Getting
of
the chip in you so they can track you. Cutting me off to where you cannot produce kids or have kids, for that matter, for women.
They so far have not
alters your DNA. That's what's for it, and it's part of your brain that identifies religion.
Progressive activists have taken to naming private citizens and sending out mailers like this in order to smear them.
I got video of Bill Gates briefing the CIA back in 2005. 2005.
It starts with this conduct should be enforced. Now, all of this began a couple
of years ago.
It's bullshit on TikTok, and parents, it's a whole other discussion.
Bill Gates created it in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Kids on TikTok did something.
America was funding it. The government, aka the taxpayers, was funding it until they cut off the funding. And then after they cut off the funding, they sent it to China to get.
I also agree with Bodie Beauchamp, who said you can't keep sending your kids to see
gain function, to make it stronger.
This cultural competency plan, I want to point out.
Because Bill Gates tried to get us with SARS, H1N1, swine flu. He tried it with all that virus, and it didn't work. He said the next one will get him. He said the next one will get their attention, and his wife was like, it's got everybody's attention. Everybody's walking around with fucking terrorist mask on, looking like a bunch of fucking terrorists. Stupid people standing 6 feet apart. I ain't wore a damn mask. I ain't stayed 6 feet apart. I've hung out with people. I've never locked down. I've never done none of it. I don't wash my hands all the time or nothing.
A lot of money for this.
My hands are dirty as a motherfucker. I ain't scared.
Amen. This is happening everywhere. They'll come in, they'll wreck your school, they'll hurt your children.
Yeah, that's why they're trying to destroy America too, Thunderstruck.
I'm so grateful to hear of parents who are doing something.
That's why they're trying to tear down America so they can rebuild it in their socialist, aka communist
in Congress, the congressional press agenda control access to
it's all part of it.
They
It's all part of George Soros, Klaus Schwab. It's part of the New World Order.
Or seem not liberal enough.
They're trying to tear America down, because America is the superpower of the world. Basically, America is the leader of the fucking world. And if they tear it down, and then every other country follows with it.
If we don't do something about climate change, one of our last records of how some parts of the world look, oddly enough, would be
You can't take over the world if you don't take out the head of the body, which is America. That's why they got this that's why they got this war against racist police shoot people. They're trying to keep us divided. They're keeping us divided so we don't come together and realize that they're fucking us over. That's why they got the Capitol guarded and shit. Nancy Pelosi's afraid that what she had BLM and then Quifa do on January the 6th to the Capitol will actually fucking happen via the Patriot people instead of Black Lives Matter and Quifa. She arranged that shit. She knew. She planned it. They all know about it 2 weeks ahead of time. That's why there was such thin security there. That's why they use for barriers. For barriers, they use fucking bike racks and lined them up.
Wow, he does an amazing white person voice. It almost sounded like he wasn't the privileged.
I seen a video. It disappeared before I got to watch the whole 8 hours. But I seen a video of people had a bullhorn and had their cell phone broadcasting Trump's speech or whatever, broadcasting that in front of the Capitol, and he pointed. He said,
white kids might need to be killed by cops.
He told him to get a dude over there, a dude right here. He said, get a dude over here, get a dude over here in the middle, get a dude over here. And then whenever there was Antifa or something, did Black Lives Matter or Antifa 1, and then the police opened the damn bike rack, or the bike racks, opened it up, told them, come on y'all, let them all in. The Patriots didn't do nothing to the Capitol. It was Black Lives Matter and Antifa doing it. The Patriots didn't do a damn thing. They just thought they just admired it. They didn't break nothing, destroy nothing, or nothing.
I guess Chris either saw his ratings plummet, or maybe his brother harassed another staffer, so he needed to.
They was on the Capitol steps, singing the reciting the Pledge of Allegiance and singing the national anthem. They wasn't destroying shit. I seen a video of this one dude. He was a Trump supporter, and there's guards standing there, and all in the bodysuits, just standing there like this. And that dude's like, get over here and do your fucking job. They're over here, they're destroying the fucking Capitol. Do your damn job. And they just standing there not doing a damn thing.
The media doesn't care because they agree. And also Maxine doesn't know where they live. And they're also too busy comparing black congressmen.
Yeah, that was all set up. It was a setup to get your mind off the voter fraud and how they stole the election from us and Trump. 65 million people voted for Biden. In reality, 65 million voted for Biden, but 79 million voted for Trump. There's 331 million and 5,000 people in America. And we're letting 400, I'm guessing Congress, the House, and all that shit. We're letting 400 people tell us what the fuck telling you what to do. there's something fucking wrong. They're trying to take your guns away because they're trying to do something. They're trying to do something to us that we'd shoot them for. That's what guns are for. The guns are not for hunting. They're not for hunting, target practice, protecting yourself, or protecting your family against criminals, right? Guns are not meant for that. Yeah, sure, they work good for it, but they're not meant for that. They was given. We have the right to bear arms for protection against a tyrannical government, which we have today. I'm telling you, I know what the fuck I'm talking about. If you think I'm not, if you think I'm stupid, you just keep on sitting, you just keep on relaxing, acting like it. Everything's just cool, and cops are killing black people on purpose and all that. Just keep on going with it. And then by God, when it's too late, and you don't have no freedom of speech, no rights, no guns, no nothing, and the Constitution is not.
I was just reading
Nothing.
in the New York Times about this project.
And it's gone. It's history. And then you'll be like, well, I should have listened to that son of a bitch named Hammer, a.k.a. Jack. Yeah, I should have listened to him. It's too late now.
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I really believe those words.
My God,
I heard that, Retip. I'm on your side, bud.
So we've drawn the line.
But that's what this is all about.
And if you're on the wrong side of that line,
That's what it's all about. That's why they had to get Trump out of the White House, because Trump was not one of them. He worships God. The Democrats worship Satan.
Undoing the basic things learned from centuries of bloodbaths.
They're part of the Illuminati.
And reciprocity gone.
Devil worshipping some bitches. That's all they are.
When disagreements were settled,
They had to get Trump out there so they could get their agenda, New World Order agenda, aka Great Reset, rolling.
And power. Truth is, most Americans agree that George Floyd's treatment by police was abhorrent.
See, they thought Trump was on. They thought Trump was on their side until, and it was the year before. It was before the first impeachment that they tried.
Is the quickest path to power, as well as
He went to Davos with him, and he said, America will never be a socialist country. It belongs to the patriots, not the globalists. And that was a big to the Illuminati, aka the devil worshipping some bitches. George Soros was like, the Trump regime is a danger that will disappear in 2020. Boom, what happened? See, Hillary Clinton was supposed to win, be guaranteed to win in 2016, but they had the Smartmatic, aka Dominion machines. They had some bugs in them, so Hillary Clinton didn't get elected like they had it set up, or thought they had it set up to be. Because if them machines wouldn't have been faulty and Trump wouldn't have got in the White House, and Hillary Clinton would have been put in there like she was supposed to be, this shit would be going on. This shit would have happened 4 years ago. They've been working on it for 50 plus years, trying to get America to go on so they make every other country follow suit.
So it just made me think of that phrase where you disaster.
I know people think, hey man, he's fucking weird. No, I don't wear a tinfoil hat. It's not theories, this is facts, actual facts. I swear to Jesus and I swear to God, I swear on everything that's holy, this is the fucking absolute truth. No bullshit. I raise my hand to God. This is nothing but the truth, so help me. This is I'm telling the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I really appreciate Cuomo being
I am.
angry about it than I am. So nice.
The devil can't put the cover over my eyes, by gosh, because I got a lighter and I'm burning that motherfucker up. I can see through it. I can't be led astray. I'm on God's path. I'm on God's side. I ain't on the devil's. Fuck that shit.
Posturing violence, not the Constitution. So then my question is, what the hell are you doing?
Have you ever seen the Left Behind movies or read the Left Behind books? They're real good.
Ended up being, and I watched the entire.
After the rapture, this dude, he's an airplane pilot. And then all the Christians just poof, disappear, and he's left behind. And he gets saved. He wasn't saved, and he didn't believe that God died for our sins and stuff. So he got left behind, and then he realized that God was real and everything. So he became saved after the rapture already happened. And somehow, I can't remember how, but he started working for the devil. Okay, the dude that said he was God and all that, you know.
All they need is one juror.
He started working for Satan, and he could see, he knew everything that the devil was trying to doing. Had all the people in the circle that the devil was leading, except for him, had them going along with it. In the book, he shot a dude that was sitting around that table that they was at in a meeting or something. He shot the dude, and nobody flinched. But that dude that got left behind that became saved after the rapture, he knew, he could see through the devil's bullshit because he was saved. He wasn't one of those fucking goat pull. He wasn't going along with it because he was acting like he's going along with it, but in reality he knew he knew the shit was fucked up that the devil was doing, but he had to go along with it because he was working on a greater good. But I never got to read all the Left Behind books, so I didn't get to find out how it turned out. But I'm pretty sure it turned out that he got to go to heaven and all that at the end.
This is not time to play around, and I did enjoy the clip of.
But that's why we got guns.
Reading from Reefer Madness.
To protect ourselves against the government.
You white kids with your jazz cigarettes.
We got guns so when the government becomes tyrannical,
He wants the young people to die.
The word I like to use, when the government starts the bullshit that they've got going on, and they're trying to take your rights and freedom away, we got guns so we can go up there, take the motherfuckers out, and make this country one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. They're trying to take all that up. They're trying to tear that up. They're trying to destroy that part and make it one nation under communism and no justice for all. They're trying.
And also just the fact that gets me mad that he assumes because of race.
It's all part of their plan, man.
Somebody of a different race. So if somebody's child dies,
and only the wise know what's going on.
That is a terrible thing to say about America. He's talking about
the Pope. Pope Francis is a devil worshipping son of a bitch.
Proven false if you have Google.
Because for the past he gave a bunch of immigrants that came to wherever the church is, wherever he resides at. He gave some immigrants that came to that country $6.66 a piece. Each individual got $6.66. That's it. No more, no less. $6.66.
Derek Chauvin fan club, and I've had enough of it.
If you know anything, 3 6s equals the mark of the beast, aka the devil.
Divide us when we actually do agree and actually have a chance to unite around something that we do agree on. And there's plenty of reasons to be pissed off in the world.
You can kill me, you know, like I said, I'm going to live free, I don't care, you know. They might lock me up, but they can't take away my freedom. Yeah, they can lock me up, they can chain me, they can shackle me, they can put me in handcuffs, they can do all they want. But they'll never take my freedom. Because my freedom is in my head. You see, I got freedom to roam right now, you know, as far as physical freedom, but whenever they come and take that away and put me in a FEMA camp, I'll still be free in my mind, and they can't take that away, no matter what.
Signaled about whatever his name was, and Derek Chauvin, the poor police officer who got blamed for his OD.
See? Mark Dice said it. Got blamed for his OD. George Floyd OD, by the way.
If you watch them, I'm ashamed.
He swallowed 2 grams of fentanyl before he got out of the vehicle that he was in. If the cops wanted to shoot George Floyd, they'd have shot him if they wanted to kill him, he would have been dead when they was trying to get him out of the car because they had guns pulled on him.
And Derek Chauvin, the poor police officer who got blamed for his OD.
It has been quite a year.
Hang on, I missed
we are still smack dab.
I was running my mouth. I missed it.
Get your barf bag ready because the Oscars were on Sunday, and if you watched them, I'm ashamed of you. That's my job. Like the garbage man, I do the dirty work so that you don't have to. And within the first 20 seconds, they virtue signaled about whatever his name was, and Derek Chauvin, the poor police officer who got blamed for his OD.
It has been quite a year. And we are still smack dab in the middle of it. We are mourning the loss of so many, and I have to be honest, if things had gone differently this past week in Minneapolis, I might have traded in my heels for marching boots.
Devil worshiper.
Now.
And that set the tone for the evening, and the Oscars were so black this year, I thought I was watching the BET Awards.
Like a picture, black
no, it's so trainy.
Standing up here, and Asian sisters, and our Latino sisters,
Latinas,
and indigenous
it's Latino, you dumb.
Yay! I can't wait. Let the diversity never end. I'm getting so old that I remember when movie awards were about movies.
Dude, that used to be
and now it's just endless nonsense like this.
Yeah, you do that. Used to be a dude that's now a bitch.
The police will kill 3 people. And tomorrow, the police will kill 3 people. And the day after that, the police will kill 3 people.
It's got this white dude, this queer white dude sitting there going,
the police in America every day kill 3 people. And those people happen to disproportionately black people.
Be white.
Wow, 3 people
black.
a day, huh? In a country of 330 million. And
no, it's 331 million and 5,000.
of those are full.
It's 331 million point.
Statistics. Let's talk about some.
Do you know how many
people die every year in America from car accidents?
It's close to 30. It's close to 331.5.
You are 33 times more likely to
That's
die
how many
in
people
car
in America.
accidents on your way to work than you are to get killed by a police officer. And for those of us who work for a living instead of collecting welfare or a UBI or whatever they're calling it, there are 5,000 people a year who die on the job from accidents at construction sites, equipment failures, accidents in warehouses, machine shops, etc. That's about 13 people a day. So
9% of the people that get
4 times more likely to die
get killed by cops are white people.
than you are to get shot by a police officer after committing a crime. There's plenty more to come in this video, so stay tuned. But if this is your first time watching me, subscribe to my channel because obviously few have the balls to dare utter these truths aloud, and I will as long as I'm able. So
yeah, I want my little global warming T-shirt, Mark Dice. Send that shit. It's supposed to be mailed out, but I ain't received it yet.
I don't know who this person is. I don't care. If you know who they are, don't bother telling me. And I was only half joking.
Some queer just as woman.
Into BET because even the commercials were woke.
A black woman created
Build something black. Let it drip with glory.
Build it in love, like our ancestors' story.
Tyler Perry kissed his career goodbye.
Sacred and kind.
Yeah, Tyler Perry kissed his career goodbye at the Grammys or whatever the fuck it's called. He stood up for what was right. He said, I refuse to hate someone because they're white. I refuse to hate someone because they're a cop. I refuse to hate someone because they're Mexican. I refuse to hate someone because
it wasn't even fun to hate watch.
Any culture you can think of. He said every damn one of them.
I am
Tyler Perry was the epic.
But I now have the honor to present the award.
Yeah, he was the awake one, and everybody else was just woke.
Contributed to the larger cultural conversation through their storytelling this year.
Yeah, he's the one that had sense.
and
Everybody else
social
is fucking retarded.
in their own unique and extraordinary ways.
And what a surprise! That award went to some actor for playing a member of the Black Panthers in a film called Judas and the Black Messiah. The award for Best Animated Feature went to Soul, which is about...
I hope he includes Tyler Perry.
Of course you can.
Because
the award for Best Director went to some Chinese woman. Her film, Nomad, also won for Best Feature Film. So, of course, that's being hailed as a...
But everybody else was all fucking woke.
And also, what was a first for Asian people is...
Tyler Perry was a smart one. He's a Christian, so of course he was
actually brought in more
right
money
side, not the
than
wrong.
the box offices in the United States. 2020 also marked another milestone for the commies because it was the first year that a Chinese film, not Nomad, that's not considered to be...
The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 10 verse 5,
Nomad hardly made any money at all.
the heart of the wise inclines to the right, the heart of the fool to the left.
Brought in the most
So it means the fools are the Democrats, the wise people are the Republicans.
Chinese director because, well, China's the biggest market now for Hollywood movies. And because China is poised to overtake the United States fairly soon and become the world's premier superpower because of our decline by design for the New World Order, that's why the establishment is starting to morph and include Asian Lives Matter in with the
I ain't
rhetoric.
stupid.
And really just ignoring the vast majority of the instances when black people are the perpetrators committing hate crimes against Asians, and then highlighting the rare instances when the perpetrator is white, because that way it provides a barrier against people criticizing communist China, because if you criticize that, now you are perpetuating the hatred against Asian Americans. The least they could have done to liven things up is given an award for best comedic performance to this cop.
Dispatch, I've arrived at that disturbance. Will you have LeBron call my cell phone right away, please? Thank you. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. No, can you put the knife down, please, sir? Sir, no, sir, don't stab it. No, stop stabbing. Stop. Oh, hold on. It's LeBron. LeBron, hey, yeah, it's me again. Listen, I'm out here at this disturbance call, and there's a guy trying to stab another guy with a knife. What do you think I should do?
I did have a nice chuckle at the very end, however, because the entire show was building up to what everybody thought was going to be the climactic finale.
Yeah,
when Chad Boswick or Bozeman, whatever his name is, the guy who played the Black Panther, was supposed to win the award for Best Actor, but it went to Anthony Hopkins, who didn't even show up to accept it. CNN blamed Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick Boseman didn't win the Best Actor Oscar. Twitter users stupefied after Chadwick Boseman loses.
I'd rather have the Little Rocket Man.
After Anthony Hopkins takes Best Actor over Chadwick Boseman. Bosman was
Let's see, make our military strong instead of weak.
I saw Black Panther, and I'm not joking. Arnold Schwarzenegger has a better acting range than him. Get to the chopper! Other than the Borat sequel, which I watched for free on Amazon Prime, I haven't seen any of the films that were nominated, let alone any of the ones that won any awards.
I thought Arnold Schwarzenegger was...
actors and actresses are
I thought he was cool back in the day.
I'm not wasting any brain cells.
Until he went woke, and now he sucks
ass. And I'm
ass.
certainly not going to waste any of my time watching their movies. And neither should you. You should read my books, however, because they're 10 times more hardcore than my videos. So get them in paperback on Amazon.com.
He didn't point out Tyler Perry.
Or download the ebooks on your tablet or your e-reading device. Or head on over to my online store, markdice.com, and get yourself a Celebrities Know What's Best shirt. Available in a t-shirt, long sleeve, and a hoodie, and a whole bunch of different colors as well. So head on over to markdates.com or click the link in the description below and check them out.
I got me a I Love Global Warming t-shirt on the way. Yeah, I bought one of those. Let's see if I can find it. Surely Newsmax put it on their YouTube channel, I hope. Where Tyler Perry pretty much says goodbye to his career. Because he said he refuses to hate somebody because they're black, they're white, they're a cop, or they're Hispanic, or any of those things. Yeah. Alright. Kamala Harris is a piece of shit. Yeah, this is part.
Today, the police will kill 3 people. And tomorrow, the police will kill 3 people. And the day after that, the police will kill 3 people. Because on average, the police in America every day kill 3 people. Which amounts to about 1,000 people a year.
Which are white.
And those people happen to disproportionately be black people.
No, white people.
And, you know, James Baldwin once said, the most despicable thing a person can be is indifferent to other people's pain. And so I just ask that you please...
Cops only kill people
not be
that
indifferent.
try to shoot them, try to stab them, or
tomorrow the police will kill more people.
something stupid like
Will
that.
kill 3 people. It sounds like police are out there murdering folks. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on it.
Great acting job by that guy. Maybe that's why he got an Oscar. Look, he didn't say anything about the weekend violence in Chicago this weekend. This goes on just in Chicago on a weekend basis, on a daily basis. 25 were shot, leaving 5 dead. Last week, 30 were shot, including a 7-year-old girl, Jaslyn Adams, who was shot as she sat in a car in a McDonald's drive-thru. This group says nothing about that. It's like whistling past the graveyard. That's nothing but moral preening on his part.
See, they're just trying to keep us divided so we don't realize.
You know that police,
I know what they're doing, but they're trying to keep the people in America divided by systemic racism, so people don't come together and realize what the fuck they're
black
doing.
on black crime. So again, whistle past the graveyard, you know, play for the cameras, but
America is not systemically racist.
Well, we're going to find out when those
If it was
when
systemically
you watch a
racist,
speech like that, you forget. Hey, by the
Obama
way, I
wouldn't
have to
have been
remind viewers
president
that
twice.
was the Oscars, by the way. That's
white
what
people
you
wouldn't
were
vote.
watching. I'm out of time with you, Sheriff David Clark, joining us live here on this Monday. Sheriff, always appreciate your time.
Now to a growing demand for answers in the death of Capitol Hill
Obama's
protester Ashley
voters
Babbitt.
were white.
Just last month, the
90%
Department of
of
Justice
them was
announced
white
they will
people.
not pursue charges against the
So
U.S.
if
Capitol
America's
police officer who
systemic
fatally
racist,
shot Babbitt on January 6th. Officials determining there was not enough evidence to support a criminal prosecution. Joining us to discuss is the attorney for Ashley Babbitt's family, Terry Roberts, joining us on the program. Terry, thank you for taking the time. It's been almost 4 months since the incident. How's the...
Strongly disagree with the Department of Justice.
You say no warning, no legal justification for the... And share us an update when you have the chance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, tensions rising between the U.S. and Turkey, this after President Biden.
That is the Air Force base, the Turkish.
Now, Kudlow says the tax proposals will stunt economic growth.
More than 50% were conservative and also male.
We're going to keep up here with that. Let's welcome in our panelists. Hal Lambert, former Ted Cruz National Finance Chair and founder and CEO.
President Biden's new tax plan is an assault on investment, according to former Trump chief economist Larry Kudlow. Now, Kudlow says the tax proposals will stunt economic growth across the country, eventually dragging down family income, calling the new proposal a progressive left-wing ideology tax. Now, Kudlow warns that any increase could undermine the potential for an economic boom. And finally, the U.S. military has started their complete withdrawal from Afghanistan, marking the beginning of the end for America's nearly two-decade war in the country. It's just 2 weeks after President Biden announced that all U.S. forces would be withdrawn from the country by September 11th of this year. Roughly 3,000 U.S. troops, 7,000 NATO troops, and 18,000 contractors still remain in the region. Now, those are just some of the stories we're following right now. But for breaking news, head on over to Newsmax.com.
Welcome back. A new CBS poll shows a large number of Republicans think the jury got the Derek Chauvin verdict wrong. The jury found Chauvin guilty of second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and...
Yeah, no, they fucked it.
That's what I believe it. If the...
Saw that in the last couple of
I'm trying to get to the part where it got them
It would be right at 12 and a half years of the...
Well, it's not very often, but I actually...
Cop killers, pedophiles, and criminals of the worst, starting with restoring voting rights of cop killer felons on parole voting.
You know,
If they do not comply with Governor Cuomo's new mandates on policing. I mean, this is the type of really just anti-police actions that we are seeing. In the congressional district, I have my opponent, Sean Patrick Maloney, who hired anti-law enforcement staffers at the DCCC, who said outrageous things such as looting is an acceptable form of protest. We had over 500 NYPD officers injured this past summer during the looting that occurred. We have so many cops, law enforcement, active or retired, that live in my district. They find that completely unacceptable. They do not want that rhetoric from their elected officials. And our federal government, our state government has to do better. We have to fully support our law enforcement at every level. We have to have our men and women in blue, we have to have their back so that they can keep our communities safe, they can be safe doing their job, and any rhetoric to the contrary is completely...
But anyway, Tyler Perry said he refuses to hate anyone because of a cop, white, Hispanic, Latino,
to extinguish the flames, the Republican
Asian,
love will end up burnt beyond recognition. And a week that should have served as a testament to our system of laws and provided a meaningful demonstration of our ability to hold those we entrust to enforce the law accountable under the law, we instead watched our great society demonstrate our complete and utter inability to get out of our own way. Now, we watched as voices on the left who said a failure to convict Derek Chauvin would cement our criminal justice system as morally bankrupt greet the conviction of this former officer not with relief or even a sense of atonement, but by tripling down on vitriol and division, by seizing on regression at a moment of meaningful progress. And we watched too many people who rightfully recognize that 99% of police officers serve with honor and dignity greet the conviction of Derek Chauvin by exploring every nook and illogical cranny possible to excuse the inexcusable actions of a man that represents, in my opinion, the worst of the 1%. The rare rotten apple that betrays the trust and honor of the 99% of honorable law enforcement everywhere. Yes, this week we were forced to confront
he didn't have his knee on George Floyd's neck, it was on his shoulder blade.
That we are not just a nation at war with ourselves. We are increasingly a nation intent on finding reasons to demonize our neighbors and minimize the concerns of anyone we perceive as different from ourselves. Now, while the nation waited with bated breath for the Chauvin verdict to be released in Minnesota, over in Ohio, we watched a 16-year-old girl shot dead by an officer after she lunged at another young girl with a knife. It was a split-second decision in which this sworn officer of the law was forced to make a horrifying choice. It was a nightmare scenario for that officer. It is a nightmare for the families who were impacted. One child is dead. Many more children at that horrific scene are traumatized. And yet, of course, right on cue, America retreated to our designated partisan positions in this cold civil war that seemingly will never end. The left reflexively declared the officer to be a monster. Evidently to them, the black life in the path of the blade is of zero consequence. Apparently, the only lives that matter are the ones that advance the narrative they are desperately trying to sell. And on the right, true to form, too many people reflexively declared this dead 16-year-old girl a demon. You see, as it turns out, for some of our brothers and sisters on the right, grace and redemption for children is also only granted if the child in question fits the proper narrative as well. Ironically, one of the most prominent black Americans alive today was a 14-year-old knife-wielding juvenile guilty of an attempted stabbing himself. Dr. Ben Carson is a world-renowned neurosurgeon, the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under President Donald J. Trump, and a former candidate for president of these United States. But in his best-selling memoir, Gifted Hands, Dr. Carson recounts how the same hands that would separate conjoined twins once picked up a knife and tried to stab a fellow young person in a fit of rage. In fact, according to Dr. Carson, save the divine intervention of the belt buckle that stopped his blade, he would have been the monster many have proclaimed this dead teenage girl in Ohio to be. And yet, if you ask most people, they view the life of Dr. Ben Carson as a testament to perseverance, and they recognize that we are better off because he had the opportunity to become the best version of himself. Now, Ma'Khia Bryant will never have the chance at redemption afforded to Dr. Carson. Her life is now trapped in a 22-second time capsule chronicling her death in the commission of an act she will never be able to take back. And the tragic nature of that haunting reality is something we should all be able to come out of our partisan corners on and agree. And yet the resentment appears to run too deep for us to begin to plan to heal, much less pursue the healing we desperately need. Because when a nation has committed to the incivility of a civil war, there is no common ground to be had, only complete capitulation or total annihilation. Senator Tim Scott is the junior senator for the state of South Carolina. He's the only black Republican in the United States Senate. In fact, he is the only black Republican U.S. senator elected by a southern state since the year 1881. His political ascendance is a testament to what he himself calls the evolution of the Southern heart here in America. And yet a simple statement that he supported the verdict against Derek Chauvin caused bipartisan outrage. Irrational voices on the right flooded his Twitter feed and Facebook page with assertions that he had betrayed conservatism or somehow was never a real Republican. As if he suddenly stopped believing in school choice and tax cuts for the middle class, as if he was not a staunch ally for President Trump's America First agenda. And on the left, well, forget about it. They greeted his statement with disgusting racial tropes and mocking offers to send him a pen to sign on to the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act as a sponsor. as if Senator Scott didn't help push a bill of his own called the Justice Act less than a month after the death of George Floyd that included many of the legal reforms the left claims they want to see enacted right now. Now, of course, Democrats refuse to support that bill, but it appears the activists filling up Senator Scott's social media timeline, they're not actually bothered by the inaction on the issues. Because this isn't about civil discourse for change. This is about the civil Cold War predicated on perpetuating our intractable division. The famed philosopher and economist Adam Smith once wrote, "Mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent." But in our quest to affirm the innocent, in our responsibility to provide justice for those who have been wronged, we must commit to ensuring that an earnest desire for atonement does not mutate into an unquenchable thirst for blind retribution. This nation that we love is designed to get better. America is designed to get better. Our commitment to the pursuit of a more perfect union is as ingrained in the DNA of this nation as much as a desire to maintain the status quo is built into the recalcitrant spirit of humanity. But if the melting pot that has personified America's growth becomes the flashpoint that blinds us to our full potential, then we haven't just burned the American dream. We have failed the shared ambitions of the entire free world.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million.
You didn't vote for it, but here it comes. Joe Biden, Bill Gates, and Pope Francis roll out the Great Reset, a $1 trillion bid to end sovereignty and take away your car by 2030. But not to worry, Greta Thunberg tells us to follow not the science, but, her metaphors. By the way, did you vote for John Kerry? Me neither. How about Tony Fauci? No? So what's with all these unelected officials handing our country over to the champagne-guzzling billionaires in Davos? Brett Favre says racism wasn't an issue when he was playing football, so why is it dominating sports today? Plus, Black Americans speak out against the Soros-backed race war that's tearing our country apart. And finally, great news, a major sign of hope at the end of tonight's program. All that and more tonight from the editor's desk.
Adults keep saying we owe it to the young people to give them hope. But I don't want your hope. I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day.
In the past, when you're talking about climate change, you have said, quote, I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day. Is there what particular study or scientific report did you read that made you come to this conclusion?
First of all, let me just clear that those are metaphors. In speeches, you often use metaphors. So of course, I don't mean literally that I want people to panic.
Greta Thunberg. Oh, I see. Those are metaphors. What is this thing now? They got this thing called climate anxiety.
Psychologists are treating children as young as 10 for mental health issues relating to a fear for the state of the planet. The American Psychological Association has coined the term eco-anxiety to describe the chronic fear of the impact of climate change.
9-year-old kids freaking out, not able to sleep at night because they're worried, and this is a real thing, they're worried the world's going to blow up. Mostly because of this unfortunate, abused little child, who now we find out is not using science so much as metaphors.
So there was no scientific study that made me come to that conclusion.
Follow the science, or at least the metaphors. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, a little distracted tonight by the video clips. The Michael Matt here, coming to you from the offices of the Remnant newspaper once again. What Greta is actually talking about here is Biden's big climate conference, which took place at the White House this week, which now is the kickoff of the Great Reset. Here's Joe.
Well, hello again, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. As I mentioned this morning, meeting the moment on climate change must begin with recognition that every nation has a responsibility, and every nation is at risk.
I don't know what's worse, the leader of the free world trying to get his technology to work, or the leader of the free world reading his teleprompter to see what is going to happen next. Absolutely asinine. And of course, Pope Francis was right there with old Uncle Joe. He came in, he addressed the conference, speaking briefly in Spanish, more or less a blessing, I think, for the entire White House conference. I'm sure Francis was breaking down the pathways to marginalized peripheries, where he's going to help out build the common home back better on the peripheries, as long as we're not too rigid, or whatever it is. Buzzword generator, exactly. Madness. You got Pope Francis, Bill Gates, Joe Biden, Greta, Al Gore. They're all united now in a common purpose. While the whole world's going to hell and 1 million babies die a year. And your Holy Father's out there just freaking out over the climate change. As we've said before in the past on this program, guess what, Francis? We don't care. We really don't care. Since Sister Mary Carroll's 3rd grade catechism class, we've known this thing's going to come to an end eventually. The world's going to end eventually. If this is it, great. If it's not, great. Couldn't care any less. Really don't care. What we do care about is massive loss of faith, the destruction of the Catholic Church, the slaughter of the unborn. Those are some pretty big issues. Francis doesn't seem to give a rat's lower spinal extremity, does he? Right there with Biden. Right there with Gates. Does this bother you? Of course it does. I think most people now are looking at Francis and saying, what is this thing? Yeah, what is this guy? Again, we're talking about this stuff. I don't think that raising awareness is as important anymore as it was. When we first started talking about the Great Reset, 13 months ago, people didn't know anything about it. Now it's everywhere. People understand. So we're trying to raise awareness, yes, but also we can't just decide that it's over, that these crazy hippie Bond villains are actually going to pull all this off. So we're going to talk tonight about what they're doing, what the latest thing is, the Great Reset, their harebrained reset scheme. And after this quick message now, I'm going to tell you why I got a lot of hope that these lunatics are not going to succeed. Well, a lot of you have asked for it, and it's finally here. Podcasts of every editor's desk, along with the brand new Michael Matt Show, now available on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and hosted on Remnant TV's independent player. Our content is secure and available now in a variety of formats. My philosophy is simple. Build back better by building back independently on our own systems, our own content delivery networks with pro-life, pro-God, pro-family service providers. And that's exactly what we're doing. So our TV now can't be canceled. It can't be deplatformed. And I think you appreciate that. Help me fight back. Click the link below and let's go to war together. Thank you so much for your support so far. Unite the clans. I'm Michael Matt for RTV. Pray for us, and we'll see you on the front lines. So, let's review. Klaus Schwab is 82 years old. Nancy Pelosi, 81 years old. Tony Fauci, 81 years old. Joe Biden is the youngster in this group, 78 years old. Pope Francis, 84 years old. George Soros, a whopping 90 years old. There's your leaders
Klaus
and shakers
Schwab.
of the world, friends. Most of them should be in nursing homes. At
George
this point,
Soros.
And if these dinosaurs don't close the deal on their Great Reset pretty soon, they're going to be
Bill
watching
Gates.
Sonny and Cher reruns over at Happy
I don't know who that
Acres.
dude is. don't know who that guy is.
After loading up on Geritol, Uncle Joe teleprompted the launch of the Great Reset, again, from a teleprompter. Not really sure what's going on here. He's just reading what he's told, what's put in front of him. Here he is.
The United States sets out on the road to cut greenhouse gases in half by the end of this decade. This is a moral imperative, an economic imperative, a moment of peril, but also a moment of extraordinary possibilities.
And of course, there's a few sane Republican conservative people who said this is going to cost jobs, this is going to cost trillions of dollars, this is going to wreck the infrastructure, this is going to destroy the country, this is going to deep six democracy. No answer, so they send out old John the Catholic Kerry. Comes to the rescue. John Kerry is going to explain this for us. Now again, John Kerry is about 80 years old, but he's got the goods on this thing, and here's what he said.
Increasingly, I see CEOs of major companies around the world beginning to move spontaneously to commit their companies to net zero. The private sector will ultimately, obviously, make its own decisions, but what we're trying to do is galvanize groups of entities to come together, because there's no way any government will find or has the trillions of dollars necessary to effect this transition.
So there you have it, friends. Remember when you thought it was a conspiracy theory? There you go. There's John Kerry telling you exactly what it is. Exactly what it is. Democracy is dead in America if these guys get their way. And when John Kerry says the private sector, not government, will make it so this is going to happen, you know exactly what he means. For one thing, you've been watching this show for a year, so you know exactly what he means by that. He's talking about the global corporations, isn't he? He's talking about Klaus Schwab's, the fourth industrial, that guy, you know, stakeholder capitalism. Stakeholder capitalism, of course, not capitalism. Anyway, the stuff that nobody actually wants, least of all the American voters. But these guys, they don't care about the American voters. They don't care about democracy. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. These same cats were out there blowing the hell out of the whole world, you know, forcing democracy at the point of a gun. Now democracy doesn't even matter. Now it's technocracy. They've moved on. They don't care about your right to vote or speak. They do not care about we the people. Of course, you know that. They're not politicians even. John Kerry wasn't elected to anything. But as Joe Biden's climate czar, he's going to reset the whole world.
Life is real, life is earnest. If you're cold, turn up the furnace.
Tony Fauci isn't elected either, right? He's just the most powerful man in our democracy, even though nobody elected this guy. He's not running for re-election, gets to do whatever he wants. This is how it works now. These guys now, they're not trying to get the Great Reset voted in. They're not trying to sell it to you. They're imposing it on you, whether you like it or not. You know, riding in on their COVID Trojan horse, they actually believe they can shift the governance of the world from countries, from nation states, to one big, gigantic, global New World Order, where corporate elites now will control everything, and we the people will have nothing to say about it. I'm not just making fun of them when I talk about how old they are. Think about what they're saying. You got to be a little bit in your dotage, a little bit out of your head to think you can do this. They actually see America in a few years. No cars left. You're not going to own anything, and you're going to be happy, they tell us, and you may have some computer appendages stuck to your head, some machinery, you know, as I said last time, yeah, on your head. That's what they want. So their age is relevant. We're dealing with people who are nuts, and they're in incredibly powerful positions. You know, that's why they're tearing down the Constitution right now, because those are the protections for us. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the American founding. They say it's racist, and so if you object to the Great Reset, what are you? You're a racist, of course. So you can't object to the Great Reset, because the Great Reset is going to be all about equity and inclusiveness. Which means if you're against it, you're opposed to equity and inclusiveness. And who's against equity and inclusiveness other than racists? You're a racist. Ergo, Joe Biden's out there every night mumbling and bumbling along about America's systemic racism as he does his prompter. Cops are racist. Trump was a racist, he reads. Why? Why is he doing this? For one thing, he's empowering every thug in the street of America to take a cop out. We know that. He's absolutely, by saying cops are racist, and we'll get into this in the next show, we're going to do a show on racism. But by doing this incredibly irresponsible Team Biden is empowering every thug in the street of America to take on a cop. You know that. But the reason he's doing it politically is because the Great Reset depends on destabilization. And what better way to destabilize us than to pit us against each other over something we cannot change, the color of our skin. You know, you're just a racist. And if you say you're not a racist, that's just more proof that you are. You see, because racism is encoded so deeply in your DNA as a white person that you don't even know it's there anymore. You're a sick person. You're a very sick person. And sick people cannot be trusted with anything, especially the vote, especially self-rule. You know, you are the problem precisely because you can't see the problem that you are. You're drunk and you're screaming down the freeway at 100 miles an hour. And somebody's got to stop you. This is what they're saying. This is what they think. Take you out of it because you're a harm, you're a hazard to yourself. So, enter the superheroes of Davos. Now, these guys don't care that you're not a racist. They know darn well that that's not really what this is about because they invented this whole thing. Well, everybody's a racist. Even Klaus Schwab, who wants Ubermenches and Supermen, he's not a racist. He understands a little something about racism. It's not real. They know that as Christians, for example, we can easily prove that we're not racist. We're not going to because we're pandering to them if we try, but it's just a matter of logic that as a Christian, a follower of Christ, if you got a problem with another man's skin color, you got a problem with Christ. You got a problem with God. He created that man's skin color. You see? That's just logic. But logic doesn't matter. You see, they're just using the media and now the President of the United States to pit black and white Americans against each other to keep us distracted by keeping us at each other's throats so we don't know what's going on.
Told you.
And one of the things we can do down here at the level of the street, go out. If you're white, go talk to your black neighbors. If you're black, go talk to your white neighbors. Come together right now. Do not let them make you into the pawns they want you to be, the gullible little pawns. Do not let them put you back on the plantation, which is what they want. They're using you if you're black in America right now. They're crushing white people. They're using black people. They are the racists. We can beat them because there are more of us than there are of them. What happens if black and white Americans wake up and what happens if we join together? What happens if we turn against them? And what happens is the same thing that happened to COVID when Texas opened up their bars and their restaurants and their stadiums just a little bit too soon before they had globalist permission to do so. And COVID went awfully quiet down in Texas, didn't it? Because they said to the globalists, go to hell. We're opening the stadiums. Black and white Americans have the same ability right now, the same power, the same opportunity right now. If we pan back those cameras over Minneapolis or over Brooklyn Center here in Minnesota, you know what we see, friends? You know what you see down there? You see a small little group of Marxist activists making scary TV shows down there in the streets. Now, they don't want you to see that. They want you to see this.
Let me give you a look at the precinct. Site's going to come with me and show you. You can see people walking because anything that you see how hazy it is? That is all tear gas, and it is extremely strong. If you look just now, I'm going to try to sort of stand in the street a little bit. You look there. Now you can see. Now you can see.
Y'all be twisting up the story.
You want to talk to me? You want to talk to me? Okay, cool. Now, don't take my mic. But we're cool. Okay. What's your name?
What's my name? My name is my name.
All right. So tell me what you think about what's going on.
What I think about this is all the press and all the extra shit y'all do makes this worse.
Expletives notwithstanding, I quite agree with this gentleman. He's absolutely right. He's calling out CNN for the fake news operatives that they are. Because CNN, fake news, CNN is making the news. They're not reporting on it. And there's a big difference. Black America is not out there in my city screaming the F-bombs at police and burning the place down. Those are Soros-backed operatives.
Yep,
Marxists. Real people, real black Americans, are mortified by how they're being exploited.
It is a constant chicken circuit, and black folk, we are used.
heroin baby.
Emotional. As soon as it's about color, I mean, y'all, we will turn something up. And then you got
y'all
some
ever
white
seen that video
who love it. They like, yeah.
Where a sister smears black paint on Black Lives Matter
nothing else to do what they like
up in
standing
New York?
outside. Well,
That's
you know,
her.
That's our way of releasing ourselves as black people. That's our rage. We're frustrated. So let's just go burn the city down. So you know what? Democrats bank on that. You know, these niggas is monkeys. Everything else, LGBTQ is priority right now. You think they give a damn about black folk? LGBTQ is priority. Abortion clinics. We are dying. We're killing ourselves off. It was 22 million 3 years ago. It's probably like 30 million gone. Generation upon generation upon generation gone. Where the black people like to stand for that? If anything, before y'all standing outside looting for George Floyd, why y'all not at the abortion clinics? We are killing ourselves.
Now, we're not supposed to listen to this lady. No. She's making way too much sense. You see, she's not part of the show. So, Facebook, Twitter, you better kick her off the set. She's distracting us from the program. You know? Because what we need to do right now is we need to just get triggered. We need to get triggered by the wizard. Pay no attention to the black people behind the curtain. Pay no attention to Justice Clarence Thomas, Larry Elder, Leo Terrell, Shelby Steele,
Brandon Tatum here in a second.
Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, Herschel Walker, Alan Keyes,
Brandon Tatum.
Alan West,
he's coming.
Elveda King, Diamond and Silk, Officer Tatum, the Hodge twins, brilliant black American thinkers who put the lie to the Soros, Biden, Davos race war that's going on right now. Guys like Dr. Ben Carson. You see Dr. Ben Carson's skin color just doesn't matter, does it? Because he's not buying into the critical race war theory.
Well, you know what is so serious here is that we are doing exactly what needs to be done.
I like that brother right there.
Socialism and communism.
He's cool as hell.
And that is replacing God with government.
Amen.
And as government expands, as Ronald Reagan said, our freedoms decrease.
And Candace Owens, she's another one. She just doesn't. We got to shut her up. We got to ban her, Facebook, because Candace, you know, she could single-handedly take down the entire PSYOP, and she's doing a pretty darn good job of doing it right now.
People are not awake to what the Democrat strategy is here. You know, they use people that are false prophets like LeBron James to propagate a lot of these lies, particularly the Black Lives Matter lie. That seems to be almost the biggest one. The race lie has been permeating throughout every element of culture.
She's exactly right. Even in sports now, dominated by race politics. You don't think this happened by accident, do you? Because I would say the NBA, the NFL, despite all of its problems, and we all know there's a lot of them, we're boycotting them right now, in fact. But back in the day, those sporting organizations in America, they showcased how successful the civil rights movement had been in this country from the start. Millions of Americans cheering on these guys, playing on the gridiron. We didn't care what color skin they were. We didn't notice. The civil rights movement worked, and the NFL and the NBA proved it. And now they come along and they're throwing a wrench into the whole thing. And no, you guys are getting along. We're not going to allow that to happen. We need this to be about race. We need you polarized. We need you at each other's throats. Who did this to us? Who did this to our country? I'm an old guy, so I'm going to date myself. But do you remember Joe Montana and Jerry Rice playing on Sunday afternoons for San Francisco? Do you remember this? Now, who the hell in those years was thinking about the skin color of the greatest quarterback wide receiver tandem in history? Who was thinking about this?
Nobody.
I can answer that. Nobody was. We were just amazed by their talent, by the power and the beauty and the accomplishments of a well-trained athlete. Now they say, oh, it's race. That's all that everybody was always talking about race. Even back in the day, nobody was talking about it because racism was so bad. He just didn't bring it. Really? So the legendary quarterback Brett Favre, who played for the Packers and is a pretty smart guy, played for 50 years or something and never missed a game. He somehow didn't notice that it was all about race.
You know, you were always known as a big locker room guy, a leader of men type.
Andrew Clavin.
You played, look, so many of the great American athletes are black guys. You played with some of the greats, Reggie White and Antonio Freeman and all this. When you were in the locker room, was there the kind of tension there now seems to be? I mean, a lot of the politics, as American politics always does, it revolves around race. Did you see that in the locker room when you were playing?
Absolutely not. We were in something together. We fought together. We won together. We lost.
There's one race that's human,
and we truly were a family.
There ain't no culture.
So again, what happened, friends? I can tell you. You know what happened. Public education happened. Race became the issue that they were going to use to trash this country. The media happened. Critical race theory happened. Social engineering happened. And here's the thing, friends. Here's where we can just back out of this. It's all a lie. It's all a gigantic lie. You're not going to die of COVID. The planet's not going to burn up anytime soon. Remember when Al Gore said by 2013 the polar ice caps are going to be underwater? Throw that graphic up. He was wrong. They've been peddling this crap forever. When I was a kid, it was an ice age. We were supposed to buy parkas and get big polar bear mittens because everything was going to freeze pretty soon. See, the planet's not going to burn up, friends. It's part of the game. And here's good news. You are not a racist. America is the least racist country in the world. But right now, these people are trying to change that. They show scary pictures of black people on TV every night, trying to trigger white people into hate. You see, they're telling the black people, the white people have been picking on you, pushing you down forever. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't even exist, right? That's what they're saying. That's how they're behaving. No matter what he did, he's long gone and dead. He accomplished nothing, is what they're saying to black America. And all of this, friends, it's not real. This is the theater of the mind control. Theater of the mind control. Brainwashing. The Great Reset crowd, what do they want? They want to tear us all down. They want to make us hate each other. They want to enslave every one of us. And people are waking up to this. I just read the other day, we'll put a link down below, from something called the Magyar Nemzet, which is a Hungarian newspaper close to Viktor Orban, who so far is holding his own. He was like, we all thought he'd probably be the next Trump to take him down. We'll see what's going to happen. So far, holding his own. And this newspaper calls what's happening in Davos right now, you know what they call it? This is a major newspaper in Hungary. They call what's happening Davos-era neo-communism, which is exactly what it is. People are waking up. In the March 2021 edition of this newspaper, I'll put it again down below, they published what they call the Schwabian Great Reset, exposing the Davos plot to establish a what they call new transhumanist world order. All right, major newspaper in Hungary. This new world order is going to be under the transnational governance of the Schwabians, of corporations. The Schwabians, says the Magyar Nemzet, quote, want to replace democracy with complex governance, prioritize technocracy over elections and MPs, and emphasize expertise that the general public doesn't understand, end quote. Comically and incredibly, even our buddy old Boris Johnson, UK Prime Minister, doesn't quite seem to understand what these guys are all about. Because in 2020, he boycotted Davos because, as he put it, our focus is on delivering for the people, not champagne with billionaires. To which I say, there you go, Boris. I just kind of comb that hair a little bit, take off the mask, and liberate London from those same champagne guzzling billionaires. Because you know what? There's going to be a war. There's a war coming. We're just now. That's why it's so important, friends, to take the mask off and understand what it means.
You're still going to wear a mask on your face every day, 5- and 6-year-olds. You still can't play together on the playground like normal children, 7- and 8-year-olds. We don't care. We're still going to force you to carry a burden that was never yours to carry. Shame on us. It's April 15th, 2021, and it's time. Take these masks off of my child.
They're trying to muzzle us and keep us in fear long enough to get their Great Reset a done deal, a fait accompli. But there's going to be a war. People are waking up. Donald Trump, is still the most powerful Republican in America. Isn't that something? Still the most powerful Republican. And he's looking for paybacks, baby. He's not going anywhere. Added to that, good news, CNN's ratings now are plummeting.
It is no secret, at least if you're watching Rising, that cable news ratings have plummeted since Trump left office. It appears CNN in particular has taken a massive hit. After averaging nearly 2.2 million viewers in the first 3 weeks of 2021, the network has, quote, averaged just 1 million viewers since Biden took office. That is a staggering decline of 54%.
And I'm going to close with this. I promised you good news tonight. And this, to me, is beyond good news. This is like a sign from heaven. Notre Dame de Paris, the cathedral, great cathedral, medieval cathedral in Paris in France, it's coming back to life. Now, you remember what happened when it burned? We all had our theories for what was going on there, that it was the end of the world, and, you know, it burned a couple years ago. I sat right here, and I predicted that God would not allow the cathedral to be desecrated by Emmanuel Macron's socialist government. Now, you got mad at me for that, remember? Because you thought they were going to put a Starbucks up there on top of Notre Dame. Now, you know why I predicted this? I predicted that it would be restored exactly as it had been, because this is what was going on while she was burning. As I said, we're traditional Catholics. We're staying involved in politics all day long. We're going to support Trump. We're going to fight like hell out here. But we're bringing the fundamental truths of Christianity with us, because that ultimately is the only way out of this. For 30 years, now this sounds like a pretty amazing thing. How did Michael Matt know that the Cathedral of Notre Dame was going to be rebuilt exactly as it had been? Well, I'll tell you how. Because for 30 years, I started from that building and walked to the city of Charlotte pilgrimage, 70-mile pilgrimage, 30 times in a row. Now, you're not going to hear this on Fox News. But see, we're not doing Fox. We're trying to tell you what ultimately, we want to give you the information and then ultimately provide the solution, you know? Because what we're talking about here at Remnant TV is the ultimate solution that nobody, I mean nobody, dares touch on cable or network news. You stay away from the answer, which is God, the spiritual answer, the spiritual war, the crusade. Stay away from that. And yet we're up against demons. This makes no sense, does it? So for 30 years, I had real world. I was honored to have real world experience with a massive Christian revival movement in France. It's still going on. And it was based on that experience that it was easy for me to predict in writing, and I want to verify this, 2 years ago, that Notre Dame would be rebuilt exactly as she had been, as a sign to the world on how we get out of this, by getting back on our knees, by praying our beads, by keeping the faith, by becoming fundamentally true to Christianity once again. The thing that Davos is hoping to crush forever. I'm not surprised, but I'm delighted to report that right now, the French are cutting down thousands of oak trees to rebuild the forest. They called it the forest. The old medieval roof and ceiling.
Except for
in a forest south of Le Mans, France, a harvest of mighty oaks is underway. The first of 200-year-old trees needed to rebuild the spire and roof support beams destroyed by the fire. In all, 1,000 trees will be needed.
Notre Dame de Paris, my friends, will reopen in all her medieval Catholic grandeur and glory in 2024.
Reconstructing the spire and replacing the interior roof beams using the oak that is now being cut, exactly in the same fashion as those that were destroyed in the fire. There were hundreds of ideas from the public suggesting more modern ways to rebuild Notre Dame, but in the end, President Macron decided that it should be rebuilt exactly as it was.
You're looking for a sign? There's one. There's a sign. God wins in the end. And these fools, these degenerate, Christophobic fools, these 80-year-old hippies trying to take over the world right now, they're going to become the laughingstock of history. You think Pope Francis can destroy the Catholic Church? Are you kidding me? Look at this guy. You think he can destroy it? they're going to fall flat on their faces, friends. Yes, we got to inform ourselves. Yes, we got to spread the word. Yes, we got to pull our heads out from under the sand. And we got to fight. But these people will fail. Christianity, like Notre Dame Cathedral, is going to rise up out of the ashes of the New World Order. It's just a matter of when. So keep the faith, pray your beads, yes, unite the clans, and tell the globalists to go reset themselves. I'm Michael Matt, Run to TV, and we'll see you next time.
The cost of oil is going to go up. What I've had as a basic commitment since I've been as president is to reduce our dependence on foreign oil. It can only be done in two ways. One, to conserve energy.
Here's how it works, Dr. Fauci.
Right.
I get to ask you the question. You're the highest paid official in the United States government. You've given us your advice on baseball, on dating apps, on cruise ships. You told us 0 masks, 1 mask, 2 masks, now back to 1 mask. I'm just asking you, when is it going to end?
Now I repeat, I'm not anti-vax. But you're saying we got to be forced to be vaccinated? That you don't have to be a conservative, you don't have to be a traditionalist.
Well, what about liberals? You know, the high information by the science people? In a recent Gallup survey, Democrats did much worse than Republicans in getting the right answer to the fun...
Dude looks like a lady, but he's also Pope Francis's honored guest speaker at this year's Vatican conference on staying healthy in the Great Reset. Joe Perry, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and Chelsea Clinton teaming up with Pope Francis to do some good. Who would have thought the abomination of desolation would be this cool? By the way, now that we've all been vaccinated, looks like we're going to be needing another jab at least once a year for the rest of our lives, just to stay safe. It's all part of the COVID cult. Finally, it's been weeks of open bars and restaurants in Texas. So when are those Texans going to start dropping like flies? And if they don't start dropping like flies, can we go back to the old normal too? All that and more tonight from the editor's desk. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Mack coming to you once again from the offices of the Remnant newspaper. Big news out of the Vatican this week. Another great big cool globalist conference is in the works.
The Vatican Pontifical Council for Culture and the Cura Foundation are organizing their 5th international conference from May 6th to 8th. The theme this year is Exploring the Mind, Body, and Soul. Speakers will include Anthony Fauci. The conference will conclude with a message from Pope Francis.
Boy, they take themselves seriously over there in the Eternal City. Holy cow. I think this one's going to be by Zoom, which makes it even funnier. You know, like anyone cares. Like anyone will be watching this thing. But that doesn't change the guest list. It's unbelievable. We've got the CEOs of Moderna and Pfizer. We've got David Feinberg, of Google Health, who's a big AI, artificial intelligence guy. You know, help Francis out. We've got Warts, Dr. Anthony Fauci. I mean, just lightning rod guy. And Francis thinks, yeah, let's get Fauci over here. That's going to help, you know, sort of solidify the base. And of course, we've got Chelsea Clinton.
Chelsea Clinton, you kidding?
I'm not kidding. No, we have Chelsea Clinton.
How many women died and how many more women were maimed because of unsafe abortion practices. We just can't go back to that. Like, that's unconscionable to me. But as a deeply religious person, it's also unchristian.
Well, there you go, Francis. You know, and why not? Let's bring Chelsea in there. Wonder where Amy Carter is. She's probably out there somewhere. We should bring her in, because that would make the Vatican even more relevant. Who's next, Your Holiness? The guy from Aerosmith? You know, dude looks like a lady, maybe? Actually, yeah, he will be there. That over there, that thing, that creature, That's Joe Perry, and he'll be speaking at the Vatican. I'm not sure what Joe's particular expertise. I suppose he said something nice about a child dying of some disease somewhere, so now he's an expert that needs to be consulted.
Well,
forget about the scandal
yeah.
that this guy was involved with rock band. That really Smith has been degenerate for years. I'm shocked any of them are still alive, from Steven Tyler on down. But, you know, dude looks like a lady, was pretty groundbreaking on all that transgender stuff we got going around. So how seriously should we be taking Pope Francis when he talks about the sacrality of marriage, you know, and the complementarity of the sexes, when he just thinks he has to have Joe Perry of Aerosmith addressing the princes of the church? But I guess we shouldn't be too surprised. Last time around in 2018 when they had this same conference, they had Katie I Kissed a Girl Perry instructing the princes of the church on the value of transcendental meditation.
Katy Perry recently met Pope Francis during a trip to the Vatican. The pop star praised the pontiff for his compassionate heart and inclusivity. Perry was at the Vatican over the weekend to speak at a conference on scientific advancements in healthcare.
Who else? Oh yes, we also have population control guru Dr. Jane Goodall, I think is how you pronounce her name. She was at last year's World Economic Forum. Of course, there's great sort of crossover now between the Vatican and the World Economic Forum, so that's not surprising at all. But Dr. Jane was at the World Economic Forum last year, positively hysterical over population control concerns. That's her claim to fame, I guess. That's what attracted her attention. Maybe not, because apparently Dr. Jane is also not a big fan of the Catholic Church.
And if you talk about overpopulation and not population control, that's really what got to people. They don't want to be controlled. And then, of course, there's the Catholic Church, and that makes quite a major problem.
It's almost like Francis now is trying to antagonize us. You know, he's so woke, he's so intent on appearing to be, you know, Bono with it, you know, that it doesn't even occur to him that the few followers that he still has left in the church might actually throw up their hands and say, enough, we're done. And rest assured, there will not be one word said by a single prince of the church against these people. The Monsignor who runs the thing was already asked if he's going to remind the Pfizer CEOs about the little problem with aborted fetal matter being used to test the vaccines. And his response was, according to Edward Penton's reporting, his response was, no, I don't think we're going to bother them about that. I'm paraphrasing. Look it up on Edward's website or at National Catholic Register. We're not going to bother with that. I'm going to push them on that sort of thing. We're just going to have a good conversation. There's not going to be a word, friends. One word spoken to try to convert them. So please don't insult us. Don't insult yourself by deceiving yourself, by playing this game. If this has some noble purpose, the Vatican is in bed with the United Nations and the Great Reset crowd and the World Economic Forum. We've been saying this, we've been proving this week after week after week. So if you are one of those cowboy hat guys out there still giving us the 9 reasons for why this is all just fine, please shut up. You know, because it's no wonder now the big pro-abort, pro-gay marriage guys like Joe Biden are seizing this opportunity to remind the world that we all need to follow the Holy Father when it comes to things like vaccination and the COVID cult.
We share the sentiments of Pope Francis, who has said that getting vaccinated is a moral obligation.
You know what, friends? I want to be really clear about something. I want to follow the science. Honestly, I really do. I go to the doctor, I get my checkups. Lots of things are great. I told you years ago that I've got psoriatic arthritis. The science gave me a drug called Humira, which is amazing.
I follow God.
Makes you feel 25 years younger. I like science. They do great things. Really. I want to follow the science in this case, too. My question when it comes to the COVID science, however, which science are we to follow? This week's science or last week's science? Because last week, the scientific experts were congratulating themselves on how many of those Johnson & Johnson jabs they had already handed out around the country.
Across the country, a record-breaking stride. Nearly 3.5 million vaccinated in a single day is news that 11 million more doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine are on the way.
Now this week, Johnson & Johnson halted that same vaccine after people started dying from it.
Administration of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine halted Tuesday on the recommendation of the CDC and the FDA after 6 women who received the shot developed an extremely rare type of blood clot. With 7 million shots administered, Dr. LeMay says even 6 cases need to be investigated, but she says there are big concerns in the medical community that this will increase vaccine hesitancy.
Yes, that's right, doctor. It may increase vaccine hesitancy just a teeny-weeny little bit. And then there's that little AstraZeneca problem up there in Europe and Canada that we've been hearing about.
Canada's National Advisory Committee on Immunization, or NACI, is recommending an immediate pause in the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine in all individuals less than 55 years of age in Canada. This is based on the evidence of rare instances of vaccine-induced prothrombotic immune thrombocytopenia, or VIPIT, following AstraZeneca vaccination reported in Europe, with associated high case fatality and related serious outcomes.
Well, that's fantastic. Good for you, Canada. You did the right thing. But what about the poor slobs who followed the science last month and were taking the son of the gun vaccine? What about them? And now the Pfizer CEO is out there saying that the survivors of the vaccine will likely need a booster shot next year, and that then they need to get vaccinated every year. Did you know this before you got the jab? Did you know you were going to have to be vaccinated every year? But who's going to keep track of it all? I guess maybe what we're going to need is a vaccine passport just to keep us safe. Make sure we get vaccinated annually before we fly or buy groceries or go to the bank. You see? We'll need that vaccine passport. Besides, someday, if we all get vaccinated every year, might even mean we can take our mask off and have a little cookout.
Give us your best guess then.
I just did.
No, you didn't. You didn't give us a time. When do you think this is going? Are we going to be here 2 years from now wearing masks?
No,
Dr. Fauci, the same question.
Let me. You're ranting again. Let me
No,
just.
I'm not ranting.
Yes, you are.
No, but here's how it works, Dr. Fauci. Right. I get to ask you the questions. You're the highest paid official in the United States government. You've given us your advice on baseball, on dating apps, on cruise ships. You told us 0 masks, 1 mask, 2 masks, now back to 1 mask. I'm just asking you, when is it going to end?
Now, I repeat, I'm not anti-vax. But you're saying we got to be forced to be vaccinated? Are you serious? Are you calling me anti-science? If I'm a bit concerned, even CNN's nitwit is concerned about this.
There still seems to be a messaging problem. The week began with the CDC director warning of impending doom, and then ending with the CDC saying it's fine for fully vaccinated people to travel within this country without tests or quarantines. Can you help us clear up the confusion? Do you agree there might have been a little confusion over the past week for people who are still wondering what is safe and what's not if I've been vaccinated?
Now, you don't have to be a conservative. You don't have to be a traditionalist.
But what about liberals? You know, the high information by the science people? In a recent Gallup survey, Democrats did much worse than Republicans in getting the right answer to the fundamental question, what are the chances that someone who gets COVID will need to be hospitalized? The answer is between 1% and 5%. 41% of Democrats thought it was over 50%. Another 28% put the chances at 20 to 49. So almost 70% of Democrats are wildly off on this key question, and also have a greatly exaggerated view of the danger of COVID-2 and the mortality rate among children. All of which explains why today the states with the highest share of schools that are still closed are all blue states. So if the right-wing media bubble has to own things like climate change denial, shouldn't liberal media have to answer for, how did your audience wind up believing such a bunch of crap about COVID?
You know, and added now to the messaging problem that Costa mentions, you got guys like Governor DeSantis and Governor Greg Abbott out there looking like geniuses. No forced vaccinations, no mask mandates. Nope. Their businesses are all open, their stadiums are open, right? Full to capacity. And yet, no spikes in the cases, no hospitalizations. increasing. No deaths increasing. Are you not seeing this? Those of you who are still buying this, you're still masked up in your car and everything. What do you think when you look at that stadium full of people, back to the old normal? What do you think? Doesn't it make you kind of want to do it yourself, maybe? Check it out. Do you think maybe you've been misinformed? Do you think maybe you've been drinking some Kool-Aid here? Do you think maybe they've been playing with you? Because the old normal is working right now down in Texas. Even if Dr. Fauci says, hey, don't believe your lying eyes.
You know, you see the pictures of the Texas Rangers Stadium essentially crowded. We don't want to declare victory prematurely because we have a virus out there now, this variant that spreads really quite efficiently. And if you pull back on masking and avoiding congregate setting, you're really taking a pretty big risk.
You know what's happening, right? You know what's going on here. These guys need the mask. You see, because the mask is a sign of herd compliance, in my opinion. It's also a sign of herd stupidity, but that's for another program. Herd compliance, that's what it shows. You're wearing your compliance. You see, it keeps us psychologically locked down at the same time. What are they saying? Put on your mask. Put on your mask between sips and bites. This is what they're saying on some of the airlines now, Southwest Airline being one of them. Right? You flew recently, that's what you got. Mask goes up and down. You put it over your nose, pull it down for a sip, set down the beverage, and put it back up over your nose. This is what grown adults are telling other grown adults to do on the airplanes right now. You know? That's what they're saying. And what are they doing? People say, well, yeah, what I do is I leave it down, and then I look down the aisle, and I keep drinking, and I don't put it back, the mask back up over my nose. They don't even see me. But then on the other hand, you're a grown human being. You're a grown adult. You're sitting there hiding little drinks from the people on the airplane. What's happened? This is Orwell, right? Because they're in your mind. Even when you're cheating a little bit and you're sneaking around without your mask on, they're dominating your thoughts. All you want is to have a drink of soda. And yet he's right there. Big Brother's right there in your face, right there in your head. How long can we go on like that without being driven nuts? You're on an airplane hiding, if at best a small fraction of us are hiding just a little bit, keeping the mask not always up over the nose. That's a recipe for insanity, friends. You know this. You know? What they're saying is wear that mask, put it on every day as a token of your compliance. This is why we've been saying all along, take that mask off to show your non-compliance. And this is scientific. How do I know? Because they don't tell us what kind of mask to wear, do they? They just say, slap anything on your face. Show us that you're compliant. It could be the little gator thing. It could be a snotty handkerchief. It could be a sock. They don't care. Just make sure it's there. Because we're telling you to put it there. And even after you're vaccinated, by the way, keep it on your face. We know we're not being logical. It doesn't matter. We're being authoritarian. So you're going to keep it on your face even after you're vaccinated. Every day, in your car, in your home. Why? Simple. Because if we can take our mask off after being vaccinated, the little citizen police department down at the gas station, the little 18-year-olds running the gas counter, the gas station counter, the convenience store counter, guess what? They're not going to know who's been vaccinated and who hasn't been. So what are they going to do? They're going to stop shouting at you when you walk in the store. They're going to stop demanding your compliance. And then what? The citizen police department will not be able to do the bidding of Tony Fauci and Bill Gates anymore throughout the entire country. And when that happens, this whole thing falls apart. The mask is extremely important because they need vaxes and they need masks for control. And the problem, of course, is that freedom has that irritating little way of being contagious.
The largest gathering of Americans in more than a year is happening today as the Texas Rangers open their stadium to 100% capacity for tonight's home opener. That's more than 48,000 people sitting shoulder to shoulder cheering on their team.
Are you actually still afraid of COVID? Really? After all this time? Because I just can't take this seriously anymore. In fact, I stopped taking it seriously a year ago. I don't care anymore. I've run out of damns to give, and I know I'm not alone. Many of you are out there the same way. And we are following the science, because the science says that we've got a 99.7% chance of surviving COVID.
Governor Ron DeSantis also tweeted about the update, saying people in the age groups of 0 to 19 have a 99.997% chance of survival. The age group of 20 to 49, a 99.98% chance. 50 to 69 years old, a 99.5%, and 70 years old and above, a 94.6% chance.
We all know, all of us, we know way too many people who've gotten COVID now, a year later, don't we? Friends, relatives, people, every day, somebody else that I know says, I just got tested positive for COVID. I met a guy last week at a little gathering who came up to me and said, hey, I tested positive for COVID. Does that bother you? Because I don't have to stay if you don't want me to. I said, no, I don't care. I couldn't care any less. You see, because we all have experience now. We've known too many people who've gotten COVID and who've done just absolutely fine. I think I know one person who was hospitalized, personally. Everybody else got COVID, they were down for a couple of days, and they came back. Well, my own producer got it, and your 75-year-old landlady. Let's throw a little bit of that video up.
I'm a 74-year-old retired nurse, mother of 7, grandmother of 32, soon to be great grandmother of number 3, and been around the block a few times.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of sickness, but you haven't ever been this sick.
Well,
you see, the fact is, friends, that the best little kept secret of 2020 is just about everyone who got COVID survived the damn thing. I mean, the vast majority of, just turn on CNN and tell me how many millions and millions of cases there have been. And out of those millions and millions of cases, 500,000 people have, according to their numbers, which we all know are a little bit skewed, we'll just give it to them, 500,000 are dead. But out of all the millions and millions of cases, you do the math. The vast majority of people survive. You know? So 500,000 supposedly have died. I'm sorry to hear that. God rest their souls. But did you know that one person dies every 36 seconds in the United States now from cardiovascular disease? Every 36 seconds. So maybe that should be your next pandemic. Maybe we should put that little death ticker on the screens over at CNN so we can all start obsessing over heart health. Because that's what they've done to you. You know this, right? They caused you, using technology, to obsess over COVID. 500,000 dead is not a happy number, but it's a relatively small number. It certainly isn't the number 1 or number 2 cause of death in this country. And yet, what are you thinking about constantly? You're thinking about COVID. Even though it affects primarily, even according to characters like Fauci, it affects 80-plus-year-olds the most. People who are already, well, so let's face it, they don't have a lot of years left anyway. So you keep talking about this 500,000. Did you know that on average, 132 Americans died by suicide each and every day over the past year, throughout 2020. 132 Americans died by suicide every day. So when do we get to follow the science on that? When do we get to follow the science when it comes to the kids who are dying of lockdown-induced drug abuse, suicide, depression? You've heard it. You know the statistics. It's all out there. Precious few people are talking about it. Dr. Tony Fauci never talks about it, which is why I despise this man. He doesn't even care. He doesn't even care about the damage this thing is causing to the country, to the economy, to the lives of young people, to the future of millions and millions of kids. So why doesn't the science matter when it comes to all that? Are you such a bunch of boomers that all you care about is making sure I don't get the COVID? That's you now? Some freak paranoid person hiding under your bed, skipping your Christmas and your Thanksgiving holidays because you're so terrified by what you saw on the TV? That's you? You have no problem with that? You want to keep living like that? Why are we not allowed to ask questions about when this insanity is going to end? Congressman Jim Jordan last week, now famously, he asked the questions because he wants to know. He wiped the floor with Fauci last week. But the geniuses rushed to defend the Holy Father Protector Tony Fauci, didn't they?
Well, that happened once in a while.
So rude.
Well, you know what's interesting is it's so personal. And it is personal.
It's really rude.
They have lied about Dr. Fauci. They have spread conspiracy theories about Dr. Fauci. No personal liberties were taken away. The Supreme Court has reviewed cases. It's sheer idiocy playing for the lowest common denominator.
Is it getting clicks being so rude?
Oh, I see. He was rude. Congressman Jordan was rude. So people are out of work. Let's get this straight. People are out of work. Kids are out of school. Suicide and drug and alcohol abuse rates through the roof. But Jim Jordan, he was rude to Tony Fauci. And one is not rude to the Holy Father, Fauci. No, that's absolutely impermissible. Can't do it. Can't you see what's happening here? Over the past year, you've joined a new religion. You now revere Tony Fauci, just as Catholics once revered their Pope. You've lost objectivity. You're not thinking for yourself anymore. You're letting the church, the cult, think for you. You love wearing your mask. That's why it's so easy for them to mask you up, because you've come to like it. You've been so brainwashed, you're enjoying it. You think it's important to show that you're a true believer, that you know your catechism. You memorize the little COVID rules, just like Catholics once memorized the 10 Commandments. Your fear of COVID is like fear of hell. You can't actually see it, but your priests assure you that it's there, and you better damn well be afraid of it. That's what they're preaching and indoctrinating you with. And you still have the temerity, the audacity to say that the Catholic Church was indoctrinating people and how terrible that was. Oh my, that was awful. Look at you. What are you doing? Congressman Jordan is demanding that Pope Fauci, tell us what the science is. Remember, that's what he's saying. He's saying, what is the science behind this? Because you know what? He wants to know. We all want to know how much longer we're going to have to remain prisoners in Gulag planet Earth. Seems like a fair question. Seems like a question a pro-science person might even ask. How long? What is the science behind this? The CNN Kool-Aid drinkers, they condemn not Fauci, who didn't answer the question, but the heretic, the guy who dared question Fauci. Their version of the Reverend Jim Jones. So what's next? Drink the Kool-Aid to save the planet? You're going to do that? You're going to put your Nikes on and drink the Kool-Aid? You're going to do that? Because that's what happens in cults. So deluded are these people after a year of this mind control, incessant, high-tech mind control. These cult followers now have stopped asking even the most basic and obvious questions, like, for example, if Governors DeSantis and Abbott are such idiots, are so dead wrong for opening up their states and lifting the mask mandates and all that, well, won't they be disgraced pretty soon? Might even be charged of murder, right? Because Texans and Floridians, they're going to start dropping like flies, right? Shouldn't they be dropping like flies already? Could it possibly be because Governors DeSantis and Abbott are the ones following the science and not following the cult?
Texas lifted its COVID restrictions recently, and their infection rates went down, in part because of people getting outside to let the sun and wind do their thing. But to many liberals, that can't be right, because Texas and beach-loving Florida have Republican governors. But life is complicated. I've read that the governor of Florida reads. But apparently the governor is also a voracious consumer of the scientific literature. And maybe that's why he protected his most vulnerable population, the elderly, way better than did the governor of New York.
Could it possibly be because they're the ones who have confidence in science? These governors and people like me, people like most in this audience, we actually have confidence in medicine, in science, rather than in the cult leaders and the crazy people running this thing. We know that people will go to their doctors when they get COVID, just as all my friends have done, the ones who got it most seriously. They went to their doctors, and guess what? They got treatment. See, Dr. Fauci, he doesn't want treatments. He never did. Remember hydroxychloroquine? Remember the war against that therapeutic? Why? Well, because if you can treat COVID, COVID becomes less scary. And if it becomes less scary, you can't use it to lock down the world, can you? And prepare us all for the Great Reset. Can't you see what's going on here? Personally, I trust the science. I'm not worried about COVID in the least. What I am worried about is the COVID cult trying to abolish the Constitution and turn our homeland into a gulag. What I am worried about is scientism posing as science. I'm worried about junk science. Put a mask on, it's going to save your life. Oh, why? That's not science.
If you look at all the mask mandates throughout the country, when we instituted mask mandates, the incidence of the disease went up. Particularly in December and January, as we went up exponentially. As the rise in infections occurred, everybody was wearing masks. So there's not a great deal of evidence that mask mandates or economic lockdowns have changed the
Mama loves you and I do too, but not as much as God does.
In a cult,
I'm out.
You would see, as we are seeing, that this has nothing to do with your health. This is about power. This is about control. And you know what? Right now, these guys are afraid. They're beginning to crack. They're beginning to show some signs they're afraid they might be losing some of this power because people are getting sick and tired of this. People are done with this unless you're a complete CNN Kool-Aid drinker hiding under your bed. Lock yourself in a house for the past year, not seeing relatives. That person's hopeless. The rest of the country is moving on. And that's